The gritty details: the January-September period was 0.87 degrees Celsius, 1.57 degrees Fahrenheit above the 20th-century average. 9 of the 10 warmest January-September global land and ocean temperatures occurred during the 21st century since 2005, with only 1 year from the 20th century, 1998, among the top 10. Based on 3 simple scenarios, 2017 will likely end up among the top 3 warmest years on record, NOAA said. Spain signaled today that it would move to seize control of Catalonia's regional government under a constitutionally allowed process by this weekend, per The Washington Post. The move comes after Catalonia's president essentially refused to respond to a Spanish government demand regarding the region's intentions for its independence. Why it matters: tensions between Spain and Catalonia have been running high for months, culminating in a seconds-long Catalonian declaration of independence earlier this month after a contested referendum. Catalonia's president immediately suspended the declaration, hoping to begin negotiations with the Spanish government, but this newest move would be an unprecedented step in a nation where memories of Francisco Franco's dictatorship remain fresh. The gritty details: crude oil exports, which grew by 300,000 barrels per day to 900,000 barrels of oil per day in the first half of the year compared with the same period in 2016, have really taken off in recent weeks, fueled in part by the size of the discount of WTI compared with Brent crude. Other EIA data released yesterday shows exports of 1.8 million barrels per day in the week ending October 13, which is up from the 1.3 million the prior week. It's not quite the nearly 2 million in late September, when refinery outages from Hurricane Harvey was pushing excess supply of discounted crude into the arms of willing global buyers. Despite Trump's boast that he reaches out personally to all families of the fallen, interviews with families members did not support his claim. Some never heard from him at all, and a few who did came away more upset. AP reached out to the families of all 43 people who have died in military service since Trump became president and made contact with about half the families. Of those who would address the question, relatives of 9 said they had heard from Trump by phone or mail. Relatives of 9 others said they haven't. Chris Beldridge of Zebulon, North Carolina, told The Washington Post that Trump promised him $25,000 of his own money when they spoke in the summer about the loss of his son, Army Sergeant Dylan Beldridge, killed in Afghanistan, but the check never came. The White House said yesterday that the check has been sent. After Army Sergeant Jonathan M. Hunter, 23, died in a suicide bombing attack in Afghanistan in August. Mark Hunter, his father, said a military casualty officer informed the family that Trump would call, and the family was let down when he didn't. The preview of the act amending the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002's definition of electioneering communication to include paid internet and digital advertisements. Currently only broadcast television, radio, cable and satellite communications are included, requiring digital platforms to maintain a public file of all electioneering communications it sells above specific thresholds. The file would contain a digital copy of the advertisement, a description of the audience the advertisement targets, the number of views generated, the dates and times of publication, the rates charged, and the contract information of the purchaser. Requiring online platforms to make reasonable efforts to ensure that foreign individuals and entities are not purchasing political advertisements in order to influence the American electorate. Be smart: the tech giants won't resist all legislation. They know that's not tenable in this environment. So they'll work to shape the proposals to give Congress a win, with a minimal hit to the bottom line. P.S. Bite of the day. Former Google Ventures CEO Bill Maris, who now runs a San Diego area VC firm called Section 32, said yesterday during a Wall Street Journal tech conference, "It wouldn't surprise me if the sun is setting on the golden age of Silicon Valley." Axios' Dan Primack writes that Maris added that he also wouldn't be surprised if federal regulators try breaking up tech giants like Google or Facebook, saying that such companies are more powerful than it ever was. The December agenda already includes funding the government and raising the debt ceiling, must-pass items that can only pass with a lot of Democratic votes, just like Alexander Murray. If Alexander Murray doesn't pass before then, it's pretty easy to see Democratic leaders insisting on some form of Affordable Care Act stabilization as part of the end-of-year package. And this bill, or something close to it, is likely the best Republicans are going to get. As one senior GOP aide told to my colleague Caitlin Owens at some point, McConnell and Ryan will need this. The catch: the Alexander Murray bill would guarantee funding for the ACA's cost-sharing subsidies, but it doesn't provide for retroactive payments. So if the bill did pass in December, insurers wouldn't get any help with the financial hit they'll take between now and then. and those losses alone could total $1 billion. In the meantime, look for Alexander and Murray to roll out a new, bipartisan roster of co-sponsors today, along with the official introduction of their bill. The cost of tax credits, as Axios' David McCabe reported last month, bids for Amazon's new HQ could reach upward of $10 billion in tax breaks and other incentives. That high price tag could undercut a locality's ability to fund good public schools, hospitals and infrastructure, the very qualities Amazon is looking for. The cost of population growth. 50,000 high-paying jobs are attractive to any city council, but they sometimes don't factor in the associated costs of population growth. In Seattle, home to Amazon's first headquarters, the population has grown by 20% in past 10 years, and median home prices went up 50%, Ethan Phelps Goodman of the organization Seattle Tech for Housing told Marketplace. Cities will have to prepare for that boom to make sure low and middle-income people don't get priced out of the housing market. Homegrown growth. Some experts say the Amazon sweepstakes will likely go to a community that's already doing pretty well, rather than helping to lift up a struggling town. That's because Amazon's criteria, more than 1 million people, proximity to higher education, strong public transportation, are the makings of places that are already succeeding in the modern economy. To meet Amazon's criteria and to be able to afford to offer a big tax incentive, a city is likely to already be doing relatively well in today's economy, said John Lettieri, co-founder and senior director for policy strategy at Economic Innovation Group. Economic development strategy can't be based on these once-in-a-lifetime location opportunities, he said. Cities can understandably go crazy over something of this scale, but it's no substitute for the benefits of having homegrown growth. That's the foundation for stable growth in the longer term, not the lottery ticket. Spearheading collaboration regardless of who wins, bidding will spur city leaders to talk about ways to attract companies, both big and small. Detroit, for example, pulled together close to 100 consultants who offered their time for free to develop the city's bid. I've never seen a community come together like that, said Dan Gilbert, CEO of Quicken Loans, who has been involved in reviving Detroit's business scene. If we don't win this bid, we're going to die trying. Gilbert said Detroit teamed up with Windsor, Canada, just across the border, which gives Amazon a huge edge on immigration issues and international talent recruitment. You're not going to get that in another city. Startup-focused cities who don't win the bid could consider putting that money and incentives toward investing in startups that trigger more organic job growth. So hopefully the losers will keep fighting and use this process to be winners, said Steve Case, CEO of Revolution, a venture capital firm. If you put a pile of cash in a city, we're all going to invest in technology, Gilbert said. I think money follows, it doesn't lead. Worth noting, the share of Americans who perceive North Korea as a looming threat is up 13 percentage points since July. Of survey respondents, 94% see North Korea as unfriendly or as an enemy. One more thing, a majority 53% of respondents do not support the Iran deal, while 39% approve of the agreement. When asked to judge how President Trump is handling Iran, 55% said they disapprove or strongly disapprove. Where it stands, Goldman Sachs thinks we should prospect asteroids for platinum. Companies like Planetary Resources and Deep Space Industries hope to launch space mining missions before 2030. Luxembourg passed a law legalizing such operations this past summer, as did the United States in 2015. The Outer Space Treaty's primary goal is to keep weapons of mass destruction out of space. But it also declares there will be no military bases in space, that there will be free access for all countries to all parts of space, and, this is key, bans national appropriation of parts of space. The Outer Space Treaty is one of those treaties that's so ambiguous, the debate isn't about what it says. It's what we want it to say, says Michael Lissner, an attorney and founder of the think tank Space Law and Policy Solutions. The details. The trillion-dollar question is what qualifies as national appropriation, says Lissner. The United States believes individuals can extract materials from space without violating the spirit of the treaty. But other countries, like Russia, disagree. Right now, says Lissner, there is no consensus on the legality of prospecting space resources. Countries like the United States and Luxembourg are posturing by passing laws legalizing space mining. The Outer Space Treaty essentially sets up space as a global commons. There are two ways to interpret that in Earth terms: space as the ocean. Frans van der Dunk, a professor of space law with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, says the Outer Space Treaty sets up space to be regulated like international waters. No one owns it, no one can colonize it, but anyone can fish in it. His position is supported by the United States and Luxembourg. Space as a park, but listener disagrees. The ocean replenishes itself. If you mine an asteroid, it's gone. His interpretation of the law views space as a sort of park, where it belongs to everyone and that everyone can visit it, but at the same time they can't cut down trees, because then none would be left for anyone else. Yes, but the debate currently focuses on whether or not corporations and individuals can extract resources. A question listener says is still legally murky. But if NASA were to go mining, that would be an entirely different story, says listener. That would constitute national appropriations. Ethical considerations. Asteroids can be vastly mineral-rich resources. Could space mining exacerbate existing gaps between mineral-rich, space-capable countries and those without? It's a concern that's been raised regularly at the UN's Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. Two ethical models, the Moon and Antarctica, signed in 1979. The Moon Agreement aimed to address the issue of equality in space. Several countries proposed laws allowing resource extraction from the Moon, but at a price. A portion of the revenue would have to go to countries incapable of space exploration on their own, and countries need to share the intellectual property necessary to go to space. Additionally, any corporation would need the approval of an international body before extracting space resources. However, the United States, Russia and China, all of whom dominate space exploration, have chosen not to sign the Moon Treaty. There is one place on Earth somewhat analogous to the Moon, our southernmost continent. Although several countries technically claim territory on the frozen landmass, the Antarctic Treaty prohibits them from using that land in a way that inhibits the access of others. Knowledge created from Antarctic research must be freely shared, and in 1991 the signatories to the Antarctic Treaty agreed to cease mining operations on the continent unless they're first approved by an international body. Although the circumstances surrounding space and Antarctica are different, it stands as an example of how the countries of Earth can act cooperatively in such a way. Indeed, when Eisenhower first proposed the Outer Space Treaty, the Antarctic Treaty was the inspiration. And people inhabit Antarctica year-round, in the same way they might one day inhabit the extraterrestrial bodies. Over decades, voyages into space have become transnational efforts. From the ISS to Cassini to China and Europe's joint moon mission, we hold space exploration as an example of what humanity can accomplish via cooperation. As privatized, commercial space exploration becomes more common, the question is whether we'll still see it that way.